Okay, propeller day. So I've got everything on the engine all done. The baffles are all installed and I've got them drilled out and ready for the baffle seals. But I'm not going to put the baffle seals on actually until I fit the actual cowl. So that makes it so that it doesn't, when you put the seals on, for example, up here, this almost touches the cowl, and those seals are pushing up and trying to push the cowl away from it. So you have to put a lot of weight on it. So it's better just to leave these seals off. Go ahead and install your cowl. It's going to go to here, and then you have to mount the prop because you want to see the clearance, in the opening, the hole opening around the prop. So anyhow, it's easier just to leave them off until later. Now, I talked earlier about doing the propeller cables and so forth. So I thought I'd just do a quick video on getting this propeller on. Now, I've already got this one on. And so you take your spinner, the bulkhead from the spinner, and you have to take the screws out, of course, and then you can remove the spinner itself. This is the bulkhead. The bulkhead, you can see which direction it is. The flat side is going towards the back side of the prop hub here. And so here is the inside of it. And actually, if you notice, it's actually wider in the back. So you have to install it in this direction because you can do it either way. I did it backwards one time, of course, and went to mount my spinner on right before I went flying and noticed it was on backwards and wouldn't fit because it wouldn't go over the wide part. So pay attention to that. Here you see a couple of marks. I put 1 and 2. Before I took the prop, the spinner off, I went inside, and on the spinner, I just took a marker and put 2. Then on this side, I put 2, and over here, I put 1, and I put a 1. That way, when I put it back on, I can put it on the exact same way, so it'll fit, with the nut plates as they're already done. So that's one thing to do before you do that. Another thing, just while I'm standing here, I'll mention is that you'll have to service the prop, and I've got a video later that I did a year or two ago about how to actual service the prop. You got a nipple on this side, and you got a nipple on this side, and you got a screw on this side, and the same on the other side, and you screw those, unscrew these so you can look in there and see. And then on the opposite side here, this nipple, you can put grease in it, and until you see it over here. But they say like not more than 6 pumps or whatever. So anyway, and then once you run the prop for an hour, the first time I fly it, I don't put the spinner on. I just fly it without the spinner. CubCrafters, says that's fine. Without the spinner, because you let it get all that centrifugal force for about an hour where it can pack the grease back down. And then you go back and you re-grease it, and then you're good for 50 hours. Then every 50 hours, you're gonna just check the grease. But one thing I wanna notice is it used to be Aeroshell 6 is what Hartz will always use for the prop grease. It has to be a specific grease. Now, they have now changed it. So now you can see this propeller was lubricated with NICO GN3058. So this is the first prop I've gotten. This is serial number 94 on this EX3. So this is the first one I've gotten with the new grease. I read about it and heard it was coming out, but even my last one had the Aeroshell 6. So it's just very important that you use this grease to do it with. And I haven't searched for this grease yet. Hopefully I can find it. I was reading last year, it was kind of hard to find. So anyway, we'll start looking for that. As I talk about also later, and if you look at the forum post, I'll talk about that. This is an Allen fitting that goes in here. You can loosen this nut. This will actually let you control the maximum RPM. So later when you're flight testing, when you give it full power on takeoff and you let it rev up and it's just taking off, you can look at it and see where your RPM is. And of course, 2,700 is where it should be. So you can, I would go ahead and fly it, for an hour or two and let everything get settled in and see where it is. But when you first take off, should be just under that. But then as you kind of get up and get a lot of the stress off, as you're maybe leveled off going along the runway, you'll look and see where your RPM is. And if you're too high, you just back it off a little bit. And I also go over that in the forum post in more detail as well. So the first thing we do, excuse me, is we're going to have to mount this bulkhead again to the back of the propeller hub itself. And you can see here, I've got them. There's going to be 4 holes that go through there. So you don't take these loose. These are sealing the hub itself up. These bolts here are the ones on the outsides. These two here and the two on the other side are the nuts that we're going to take off. They say do not remove the bolts. I guess that's holding some grease or something. And anyway, leave the bolts in, just take the nut off, okay? So I just put it on my bench here and lay it down and take those nuts off, and they're torqued back to like, I think 20 to 22 pounds or something. But when you try to take them off, they must have 1,000 on them, because they're very hard to break those loose, those nuts. Then I talk about there's spacers. You can see them. There's some spacers right down in here. It comes with a spacer that's already on there, and then they have a washer. And it's reversed when you get them from Hartsel or from wherever they come from. The washer is on the spacer side, and the spacer's flush against the hub. If you look at the diagram, and I actually have the diagram on the forum post. I have a forum post, I believe it's number 81, that will actually go over all this in detail with photos and descriptions. But you need to flip those. The diagram actually show to put that washer on that side, if it makes a difference, I don't know. Then the spacer, and then I had to add another. These are 6/16 washers, so to make it so that I had the right number of threads exposed on the nuts, and I had to add 2 washers to the back side, which was a regular size 6/16, which is a full washer, and a 6/16L, which is the half washer. So one of each went behind each of them and gave me a nice, like a 2.5 or 3 thread exposure there. So install those, torque them back down, and then now you've got your spinner plate. Now, one thing I talk about, and since I've already got it shown here, I can't do it, I'll show you on the side here, is when you look in there, there should be an orange plug that's plugged into that, which is this right here. Remove. Okay, so you remove that plug, and again, I'll remind you that there's a plug in the engine on the opposite side of this. There's a metal plug that's in the engine that has to be knocked out first, and I talked about that in another video and on the forum too. But make sure you knock that plug out. That plug stops is made for applications where you do not have a constant speed prop, so it stops the oil from coming forward out the front of the engine. If you're putting a constant speed prop on, then you have to knock that plug out so the oil can flow through the governor and back in through here. So anyway, you want to just check and make sure they've installed that at the factory. It should be there. So just put that make sure that black O-ring is there before you put the bulkhead and everything on. And as we go down here, that's where I'm talking about what I just showed you. There I'm showing you those spacers again. Like I say, it came from the factory with this washer here, and according to the drawing of the way they tell you to install it, it should be the other way around. Again, I don't know that it makes any difference. So then the bulkhead is going to go against here. Then on the other side, we're putting a 6/16 and 6/16L, and then reinstalling the nut that came with it. Okay, so that shows that. There it is, finished up, as I just showed you. And here's another thing we're going to talk about, save you some time and effort, is that you'll notice, you see this is the prop hub, and I can't show you now because it's already on the engine, but if you'll notice here, I've got the aerodrome. You see this one stud coming out, this one screw, actually it's not a stud. You notice that it's flush around here, so it's flush up next to the edge, but you notice these all have recessed areas. These are all recessed, okay? So if you look back on the engine, at the end of the engine where this is going to mount to, you'll notice that 2 areas have low. So when you put the flywheel on, as you put the flywheel on, it does not stick out or protrude. So I don't know if I got a picture of that. Yeah, I do. So right here. So you'll notice here, this is with the flywheel pushed up against the engine. You see here how this one is low and this one is low. There's 2 areas where, you know, it's below the level of this, but you'll notice all the other areas, you see this protrudes. These are all high. So there's 4 of them that protrudes and 2 that are low. Well, you have to just make sure that you're not installing, you know, that this screw right here has to go into one of the low areas, okay, obviously, because if you put it here, it's going to stop and not let you bring the prop all the way flush. as I found out the first time I installed one and didn't know that. Okay, so look out for that when you do it. Here we're talking about the torque wrench, since I'm on it already. Here you can see we've added a crow's foot, because you got to torque these bolts to 65 foot-pounds, which is a lot. And to get into those bolts, you have to use a crow's foot. This one, if you measure from this point right here, from the center, okay, to the center, the new center where I moved it, this was 1.3 inches, and I measured it with a micrometer. If you go to this forum post, I'm explaining how you actually calculate, because that changes the amount of torque registered. You have to re-register. So that's 1.3 inches difference I've changed by putting that crow's foot on it. That equates back down to about 59 inch-pounds instead of 65 pounds. So my torque wrench, you can see it here. So my torque wrench, instead of putting 65 pounds, I'm gonna put 59 pounds, and that's gonna give me the same torque that I would have had if I actually was using a socket that was here, or a wrench that was here. Okay, and just another thing, I know I've said it before, but on a torque wrench, it's calibrated from the center of this handle. So don't pull from here, and don't pull from here. It's made for the amount of pressure that's exerted here in the center. So anytime you're torquing and getting close to the torque value, torque from the center of the handle. If you push it with one finger, put it in the center of the handle, that gives you your torque. Also, it changes, and you notice if you were to do it sideways, if you were to come over here like that, an offset at a 90-degree angle, which you can't do in this case, but if you did, then it would be the same distance, and it would not be any difference. It would be the true torque value. If you were to do it somewhere in between, it would be the same thing. So you'd have to recalculate from here to the center of here how far that distance is, and then there's actually a formula calculator. I've got a link on the forum website about that. But in this case, we use it straight out, and it gives me 59. I wish I could have found just a little longer crow's foot, but I actually couldn't. It's a 3/4 inch, and I couldn't find one longer. I looked and looked, so this was as big a one as I could get. That's a 3/4. So anyway, so we get ready to install the prop itself. So when you hold it up here, again, we're being sure we put the screw that has the flush side on it up to one of the low areas, and just hold the prop up and just take a couple of screws, just start moving it. You'll notice that these bolts, the screws, are actually, I'm trying to get out of the light. See there? I want to just show you these, the screwdriver. You see here, this is the screw right here. And this screw, this is the back of the bulkhead here. So you only got a very small distance right there. And everything, these are all installed. You can't uninstall them, obviously, because that's the back of the prop hub, not the bulkhead. But, you know, in other words, I guess these are put in when they manufacture them, you know, because you can't get these screws out. So you only have this much room to play with when you're screwing these in. So the secret to this is to just go in here and get started. Just hold, I'll do it myself. I'll just get up there and hug the propeller and hold it up, and then reach around and screw one of these in until I can kind of get it started. Once I get it started, I go try another one. It'll have to be the long ones where it's protruding up through there. Get them started, and then just run around and move them in just a little bit until you get everything started and you're sure it's nice and secure. And then what you have to be careful of is you'll see, of course, the distance here between the flywheel and the hub as you start to tighten them up. But as you turn these nuts, you know, it'll start to get caught. You pull this one in more to go this way or up or back or whatever. You can kind of look in there and see that distance between the two, between the flywheel and the back of the hub, and kind of keep them equal. But you will have to you're only going to turn them just a little bit, a few flats at a time. And what I'm going to say is that it's a 3/4 inch. So as you're using your 3/4 inch, get it up in there. Just, you can look and see if the back of this screw goes up against here, then obviously it needs to go in a little bit, right? So bring it in a little bit. As you bring this one in, on none of these screws as I'm doing, do I ever put any real pressure on it. You can almost do it with your finger, but just do it until you see the nut move away from the back, you know, just so you know it's pulling it back up here. And if it starts to get hard at all, when you're kind of bringing it in with your wrench, stop, because what it is it's being cocked sideways by some of the others. So look at which nuts are kind of hitting the back, and then so you hit a few of these a few turns, and you have to go to the other side, you know, and hit these a few turns, okay? So just do it a little bit at a time, and just keep looking, you know, that you still got a little space, or as you move one in, you'll notice that one will start to hit. So move it a little bit, and that one a little bit, and that one, then back and forth and back over there. And just keep doing it. Again, you can look and see kind of the distance between, you know, the flywheel and the hub, and see if they're kind of equal on the top and the right and the left. Anyway, so bring it all the way back in. Don't, like I said, don't put any pressure. Don't try to start torquing down on any screw as you're installing it, because if it are, you're getting it cockeyed. And the reason it's hard is because another screw is backing up against the hub and causing a problem. So as long as it's light and easy, when it starts to get the slightest bit hard, stop and go around to the other ones and adjust them all the way back in. And once you've got them all the way back in, there we're going to get that torque wrench in there and torque them down with that crow's foot on it. And again, I'm at 59 pounds, and it'll just, see if I can stay out of the light, it'll just get on them now. Turn it around. You can see it'll just get on the nuts, okay? And I put my hand in the middle, and I put a leg around. I usually come around and put an arm or leg around the side of the prop, just kind of like that to hold it. Then I can give it some pressure and just keeping it up there. But that works. And then you go to torque it to 59 inches. And then again, you do a torque pattern. So you do one here, obviously, you know, and then you do one over here, then over here, then over here, you know, over here and here. There's 6 of them. So I actually go ahead and take a marker. You can see I put one on this one. On the opposite side of there, I've got 2, and 3, and 4, 5, 6. So that way I know, I'm just looking at it, because sometimes I move the prop around. So I'll just go ahead and mark them on there for now. And also, when you put that flywheel on there, you probably need to, I had already tightened up my belt on my alternator, and what happens, it kind of skews that flywheel out. So I just loosen it back up until I get this installed. Now I'll go back in and tighten that belt up again. So in any case, I think that's it. So now I'll try to see if I can find some of this grease before it's time to fly shortly.